Good morning. I'm going to talk about is where we are right now as a country, what lies directly ahead of us, and what are the options we have to change the course of our future, where we're headed. So I'm going to start with where we are as a country, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's talk about the good first. The latest CNBC economic survey shows optimism in the American economy at a 10-year high. Manufacturing is at a 13-year high. The service sector is at a 12-year high. There's a record 6.2 million job openings in America, and that's probably an October number. Commercial truck sales are strong. Intermodal rail traffic, which is a measurement of the goods and services we import traversing the country, that hit a record high in October. Despite the talk of the doom of retail, 700,000 people were hired into that sector in the last year. Median home sales are up 5%. The price of the median home up 5% since last year. Car sales have rebounded. GM and Ford are both doing well. Airlines are carrying record numbers of passengers. The stock market is looking at 25,000. My 401k has never looked better. And unemployment is low. Those are all good data points. Now let's look at some bad data points. Less than 55% of voters turned out in the last presidential election. The lowest is 1996, when only 35.5 turned out. Our health care costs continue to be the highest in the world, but our outcomes are among the lowest of industrialized nations. The UK, Switzerland, Sweden, Australia, Germany, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, France, and Canada all have better outcomes than the United States of America, but they pay a lot less. Middle-class wages are stagnant. Middle wage workers' hourly pay has only gone up 6% since 1979. And in 1979, you could buy a house for $13,600. That's what the median house sale was, and a new car for well under $6,000. Low-wage workers, on the other hand, their wages have dropped 5% since 1979, so it's no wonder that people working 2 jobs on minimum wages still qualify for food stamps. Now, while the very high earners in the economy, their wages have gone up 41%, but they are still, the household debt in America is $12.78 trillion, the highest in the nation's history. And labor force participation is 62%. Now, these numbers I find frightening. Tuition for 1 year at a private school is now $33,480, and that was last school year. If you're an in-state student going to a public university, the cost is $9,650. But if you're out of state going to a state school, that's $24,930. And then you have to add $13,000 for room, board, and fees. Remember those numbers a little bit. Now let's talk about the ugly. I could not resist paying a little disrespect to our president. This is the picture that I'd like to see hanging in every federal office building, by the way. Anyway, let's talk about the ugly. The government of the richest country in human history can't find a way to balance the budget, repair our roads, our bridges, our sewer systems, our dams, the electrical grid, educate our children, give us clean air and clean water, and so on and so on. Our inequality is the worst in the industrialized world. A couple of weeks ago, they came out and said that Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Warren Buffett now control more wealth than the bottom half of the country. That's over 165 million people. We imprison more of our citizens per capita than any country in the world. Congress has just added $80 billion to defense, bringing our budget to around $700 billion in 2018. We will spend more money next year on our military than the combined spending of China, Russia, UK, France, Japan, India, Saudi Arabia, Germany, Brazil, Italy, South Korea, Australia, and Canada. And we still call it defense spending. On any given night, 750,000 people, your fellow citizens, are going to be homeless. And of those 750,000, 40,000 of them are veterans. They're going to sleep on the streets, just like they did last night and just like they'll do tomorrow night. 48.8 million, including 13 million children, live in households that lack the means to provide nutritious meals. If you look at Marion County, poverty there, 31% of the children in Marion County live in poverty. That's up 11% since 2007. So, that's where we stand. We've got some good data points, we got some bad data points, we got some ugly data points. So I'm going to change topics. Now I'm going to talk about the future. But to put it in context, I want to talk a little bit about the rate of change. You see, before 1800, you pretty much died in the world you were born into. Change happened so slowly that within a human lifespan, you didn't really notice it too much. That's why the baker's son became a baker, whose son became a baker, and that's the way the world worked. And then technology and innovation happened, and now it happens so quickly that our world changes month to month instead of 100 or 200 year increments. So with that, at this rapid rate of change, I'm going to take on the mantle of being a futurist. Now, a futurist is someone who's either smart enough or stupid enough to make predictions. I'll let you be the one to decide which I am. Let's talk about driverless cars, which is going to have a tremendous economic dislocation. The automakers have already said that they're going to have driverless cars for sale by 2020. They've already driven millions of miles in the United States. When cars and trucks drive themselves, truck drivers, taxi drivers, delivery drivers, limousine drivers, all gone. Won't be needed. Automotive insurance companies, they insure us against other bad drivers. Well, there's not going to be any bad drivers, so insurance companies, auto insurance companies aren't going to be around. What's going to happen is we'll get on our smartphone and we'll call up for a car. We probably won't even own that car. We will have pools that jointly own vehicles. It will take us to where we want to go, and we'll call up and get a car to take us back home, which is great for you and me because our kids aren't going to take our car keys away. I'm looking forward to it. Now, let's talk about the big one, artificial intelligence, AI. This is so big there's not a word to describe it in my mind. I already have two personal assistants. I have Alexa and I have Siri. They keep my grocery list, they make phone calls for me, they tell me what the weather's going to be, they tell me jokes, they will write letters for me if I ask them to. They do a lot, and we take it for granted because it's here. It's not off in the future, it's already here. Google has a group, an AI group called Deepmind. Now, Deepmind is a business group that is devoted to developing programs that can learn. So they developed a program to play the ancient Chinese game of Go. Now, unlike chess, that has a finite number of moves, Go has an infinite number of moves. So this program reviewed millions of games of Go and then proceeded to beat the 18-time world champion Lee Sedol. Now this year, Google had a new program called AlphaGo Zero. What AlphaGo Zero did was it learned to play Go by playing itself. And in 3 days, it beat the program they invented last year that beat the world champion. So the AI is already at the point of being able to teach itself, which is a rather remarkable thing. We've never been through that. Humanity has never seen anything like this before. There's some very smart people that think we should be concerned. Stephen Hawking, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, all say this represents a danger to humanity. I don't profess to be smart enough to make that decision, but I can tell you that the people I read about and study, what they think the effects of AI is on jobs. What they say is 50% of the jobs in this country are going to be eliminated by artificial intelligence in the next 2 decades. That is cashiers, bank tellers, journalists, medical technicians, bank loan officers, telemarketers, call center workers, doctors, even doctors are going to be eliminated by artificial intelligence. So think back to the tuition that I showed you. So kids now go to school to learn how to do jobs that may not even exist before they get their student loan paid off. Now, there may be entirely new jobs that are created that we don't know about yet. And since my dad lived till 94, I'm hoping to do that so I'll be able to see 2 more decades out. Now, what I believe is change is going to happen, and it doesn't matter if you like it or not. The real question is, what do we do as a country to hold civilized society together when a significant part of the population is unable to trade their labor for things that sustain them, for food, clothing, and shelter? What are we going to do? I think it's either going to be a process of evolution or revolution. This is very serious stuff. So what can we do? Well, one of the things that we're looking at, the world is looking at, is the universal basic income, which would mean you would get a check from the government every month that would bring you up to a certain level of income. This isn't a new idea. Thomas Paine wrote about this in 1795 in his book Agrarian Justice. He called it a social dividend, which in that day was a universal basic income. Canada tried it. They did a test about 20 years ago in Dauphin, Manitoba, where it was a small town, rather isolated, as most places in Manitoba are, and they wanted to test what would happen. A few days ago, last week, this article appeared in the Sun. It says, Canada tests basic income effect on poverty amid lost jobs. So Canada's looking at it again. The Finns are working to put together a program. There's been a program in Brazil since 2004, and it's well-established social policy in Denmark. The results of the universal basic income is that education goes up, nutrition improves, crime goes down, hospital visits go down, and economic activity goes up. See, when you put money in the pockets of people that will spend it, it circulates in the economy, business sells stuff, they hire people, they pay taxes. It is redistribution of wealth. But I happen to think redistribution of wealth is a good thing. And most of the world agrees with me. Republicans don't, but we seldom agree about anything. We also need to have a single payer healthcare system. It is absolutely the only way to get control of the healthcare costs. There's lots of systems out there. All we have to do is pick the best parts out of each system, and that's what we need to do. There are literally tens of thousands of Americans dying to get a single payer system. Now, we need to make college free. We need as many smart people as we can get. Our future depends on it. Just look where dumb has got us. We're in global competition with countries that identify their smartest children, educate them to reach their full potential, and we don't do that. And that should make you angry. There's tens of thousands of kids out there who have IQs that are off the charts, who weren't lucky enough to be born into families of privilege. And they will never, because of their circumstance, they will never get the education they need to become the people they're capable of being. And they're black and they're brown and they're white. Their only common point is their circumstance of birth. We need those future scientists. We need the psychologists. We need the teachers. We need the mathematicians. We need the authors. We need the songwriters. We need the musicians. We need those people that make life a wonderful thing to live, but we're not getting it, and we should. My 4 grandkids will probably not go to college in the United States because Luxembourg, Iceland, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway provide free college tuition to foreign students. And all over South America, their colleges provide tuition at a fraction of the cost to foreign students. So I keep telling my kids, learn Spanish. You're going to need it. Finally, we need to get the private money out of our political system. We no longer have a functioning democracy in America. We haven't for decades. What we have is an oligarchy. Now, it's true that when you vote, the person that gets the most votes goes to Tallahassee or to Washington, but that doesn't mean they represent us when they get there. They represent the interests of the people who write the checks and make the donations that allow them to run for office. And unless the people we elect represent us instead of the Koch brothers, we can't expect much to change. In philosophy, the term is called ethical egoism, and it means you can count on someone to do what's in their own best interests. So when you saw the Republicans this 2 weeks ago talk about the donors aren't going to write us any checks unless we pass the tax plan, that is exactly what they were talking about. They proved my point. Now, it just isn't my opinion that we're no longer a democracy. The Princeton study was done several years ago that tracked the legislation passed and the policies made from 1981 through 2002, and what they found was that the public's opinion made no difference at all. Which is this, look at the tax bill. This morning, 8% of Americans support the tax bill. 8%. So if you really want to get your Republican congressman to listen, I suggest you send him a check for $10,000 with a note on the back. I know there are other structural changes that we're going to have to make, but time is short, and I like to stick to the basics, which are food, shelter, health care, and our children. If we get it, we'll get everything right. Now, you're probably wondering how we pay for all of this. Well, how do other countries do it? How does Denmark do it? Denmark is one of the most socialized countries in the world. They have the basic level of income, like we probably eventually will have, They have very high taxes, but they get a lot for it. They have a low poverty rate, a high employment rate, and when I went back and found the freshest comparison I could find was 2012, which it lined up Denmark and it lined up the United States, and guess what? Denmark beats us in almost every category. And they're always on the happiness survey ahead of us. So we can do it if we decide to do it, if we change our priorities. For example, I don't think we really need to spend $700 billion a year on the military. Maybe we pay for wars with a national sales tax. That'd be better than putting it on a credit card. Or maybe we shouldn't be going to as many wars in the first place. We're just not very good at winning them. Those brown people keep wanting to kill us back, and we can't understand it. Well, do you realize that we have 800 military bases in 70 countries today? You know how many France, Britain, and Russia have? How many military bases those three companies together have outside of their national boundaries? 30. But we have 800. Amazing. So, here's what I want you to take away from my presentation. I want you to understand that we don't have many choices here. We can't say, I like it the way it is, let's keep it that way. That's not a choice you can make. If we can't agree on the need to make fundamental changes to our economy, our political system, and our public institutions, we are going to become a third world nation locked in violence. There's 357 million personal firearms in America, so doing nothing isn't a very good choice. So here's what I suggest, and I always end talks like this. This is what I suggest. Educate yourself. Educate the people around you. Start searching on phrases like artificial intelligence. Read about what's happening and is about to happen. And this website right here, futurism.com, is a fantastic website for giving you the chance to look around the corner and see what's coming at you. Find out what the European countries are doing for their citizens. And then I want you to become the smart person in your group, if you aren't already, and I'm sure many of you are. Turn off the computer, pour yourself a rum and coke or whatever other adult beverage you want, put some Jimmy Buffett on Alexa, chill out, and watch the future, because it's going to be a wild ride. Thank you very much.